Morning guys, it's the Boondoggle Man. Today I'm going to show us some of the cooler projects that I have in my tin. Oh, I forgot this heart. Looks almost the same as the first heart I showed you. But if we take a look at the end and we count how many strands this heart was made from, you'd actually see there are only 6 strands. That's because on this heart I decided to try something new. This part here was created out of the triangle stitch that only needs 3 strands. If you notice up here, we actually start with the brick stitch. If you want to do my pointy end like my newest stars, you would start with a little square, then create a brick, and then split it off into the triangle. One more heart to think about. Now this one might look similar. If you take a good look at this, can you figure out what stitch this is? It's actually the circle stitch. It's been completed down here. It's got some tassels. These tassels are actually kind of long. Well, there's a reason for that. Can you figure it out? Here's another hint. See how small this is compared to this? No, it's not something like super circle or king circle like we saw with the cobra stitch. Alright, here's the giveaway. Look at this end. Do you see that? That's a pen. This is the circle stitch around a pen. What I did was take the inside of a pen out of its plastic barrel and then did my circle stitch around that skinny plastic centerpiece of the pen that has the ink inside. That way you finish with something about as thick as the actual pen was when it first started. That's a neat project. Alright, well let's stick to the easier stitches. How about this guy? I call this the dragonfly zipper pull. It's created using the circle stitch. You can also do one using the square stitch. It has a head, a body, and wings with feet. What I did is about a 1/2 inch of circle or square. Then I took a regular piece of boondoggle, just looped it around a couple times, and then actually inserted it inside of a loose circle stitch. And then the next circle stitch I did, I pulled very tight, which helped lock those wings into place. Then I finished the body. When you get down to about here, you can come back up to the wings and actually pull on either side of these wings to make them more even. That's the dragonfly zipper pull. Now here's another example. We have circle stitch. But on this end, it's the square stitch. And on this end, it's the square stitch. This is one of the first combo stitches I ever made. What could I do using more than one stitch? And it's made from the 2 most basic stitches, square and circle. But if you take a look, I did something else. Notice the blue down here has been rotated out over here. So when you look at it, you have the green on this side on that end and the blue on this side on that end. It all has to do with how you do the circle stitch, or more precisely, how many circle stitches you've done. I'll tell you the trick in a minute. This next one is made of nothing but square stitches. And I've done the same thing I did in the last one. But on this one, it's almost impossible to see any circle stitches. This looks like a square stitch all the way down, nice and flat on all the sides. And yet, as if by magic, these colors have swapped back and forth. Do you remember when I said it's almost impossible to see the circle stitches in this project? There are circle stitches. There's actually 2 here, 2 here, 2 here, and so on. If you're doing a square stitch and you want to completely turn it 90 degrees, you stop the square and you do 2 stitches of circle. Watch. See these 2 pink ones? As I turn it, do you notice? That pink one sits by itself. Watch. These are next to each other. Then this one, and then the next 2. So to completely turn it 90 degrees, it's 2 circle stitches. If you try it with only 1 circle stitch, you'll get a pattern that looks similar to a circle but has a much slower twist, kind of like you saw earlier in the twisted triangle. Alright, let's go back to circle for a second. This is a really neat one, and it's pretty easy to make too. I call it the Egyptian Ankh symbol, and it's made using just the circle stitch. It almost looks like a seamless bracelet, yet it continues out. Can you figure out how I did it? Well, I actually started at the end of this piece here, and I did a circle and wrapped it around and stuck my strands through the end of this stitch and then continued to finish. Again, the Egyptian Ankh symbol. Well, I've also done some practice with stitches like the brick. If you look at this stitch, can you figure out what I was trying to do? It's a standard brick, but look at those colors. They're all over the place. I was experimenting. What could I do to get the strands to swap? Now there are a couple places where it's kind of obvious what I was doing. Other places weren't quite so obvious. But if you play around with how the strands are sitting up here when you're working on the stitch, you have a lot of dexterity, a lot of ability to switch where the colors are going to end up when you do your stitch. Again, just a regular brick stitch, but you play around with where you put your strands. This is another brick stitch for the most part, but I've tossed some twist into the game. Brick here, twist here, brick, and so on. You can see that twist when I do that. You see? And again, there I go, playing with the strands again. Look at this brick. Green up here, yellow down here. I do my twist, and then all of a sudden, they're split up into the skinny stripes. Twist it again, and I'm back to my regular brick. Split again, and then back to my regular brick. Now I wanted the twists to stay the same length, and because of that, I was able to keep the green on the top and the yellow on the bottom. But if you were to twist it a little more, I could have made this middle one swap, so I could have had the yellows on top and the greens down below. And And again, the trick is how many of those circle stitches I wanted to do. Now you saw this with my other one. Remember this? It's a very similar technique, but this is brick stitch. Now if you remember over here, I said the trick was to do 2 circle stitches. Well, you can't do that on a brick. It's a lot bigger than a square. So what you have to do is experiment with it. I want to say it was 6 stitches of twist. You could probably get away with 4, but I think you're going to have to play around with it. Alright, 3 more to finish this video. Let's go back to square. Look at this thing. People say, what do you call that one? Well, I like to call it microphone. If you've ever watched shows like American Idol or America's Got Talent, and they give the person on stage one of those real big clunky wireless microphones. It's kind of what this one reminds me of. Now I said a second ago, it's the square stitch. It's actually 3 square stitches. I started a square stitch down here. I did square to the very end, turn the stitch around like I did with the cobra. The second one had square stitch going over the top of the original square all the way back here. Then I turned around a 3rd time and came back with square stitch again. So this section is square on top of square on top of square. This one is just 2 square stitches. And the last 2 were again just some experiments that I think turned out kind of wild. If you take a look at it, it starts off as the circle stitch. Then I added a strand to create a twist. Added another strand to create a bit of corkscrew. That brought the number of strands to 8. Then just like I did with the heart, I was able to split it off into 2 circles. Come back together with corkscrew, twist, and finished off with a little bit more circle. Kind of a neat combination, isn't it? And the last one for this video, again, I just went wild. Look at this guy. Started with some twist, tossed in a square stitch, or in this case a brick stitch, which caused that twist to spin back. Went back to regular brick, some twist, regular brick, and now look, it's split in 2. Remember, brick stitch has 6 strands. So what do you think this is? That's right, it's triangle. But take a look at the way the colors go. Is it triangle? No, it's twisted triangle. Did some of that, combined it back again into a brick, but look at this, regular brick, striped brick. Went back with the twist, some more striped brick, and then this is kind of neat. When I was done with the striped brick and I went back to some solid twist, look at the inside, look at the groove. See how it's speckled blue and yellow? And then there's another trick. 1 stitch of brick causes that twist to all of a sudden go the other way. Finish off with some tassels. What do you call it? I don't know. Super combo sounds good to me. Thanks for watching, and look for part 2. Bye-bye.